Let's start with Ukraine turning the war back on Moscow.
Ukraine has launched one of its largest drone attacks on Russia since the war began. Russia's defense ministry says more than 550 Ukrainian drones were shot down overnight. Multiple locations were hit in and around Moscow. At least 3 people were killed as drones hit residential areas. Videos posted on social media show drones hitting residential buildings and industrial facilities. Moscow's airport suspended hundreds of flights following the attacks, although they have now mostly resumed.
All hell is breaking loose as Ukraine's President Zelenskyy has now turned the tables on both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Moscow is burning, Moscow is under attack, and Ukraine is now deploying long-range capabilities, including advanced drone systems, to strike key infrastructure deep inside Russia, even in locations Moscow once claimed were among the most heavily defended in the country, Slava Ukraini. Now let's see how Zelenskyy answered Trump's "you don't have the cards" line.
But he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
Here is what we are learning. The Kyiv Independent reports that following these latest strikes on Moscow, Zelenskyy is signaling a major shift in the battlefield balance and suggesting that even more deep attacks into Russia may be ahead. Remember when Donald Trump told Zelenskyy, "You don't have the cards, you need to listen to me." And Zelenskyy's response was essentially, "What do you mean I do not have the cards? One day war is going to come to you, and you will not know how to respond. We should be allies. But if this is the direction you want to take, Donald, then that is your choice." This next clip shows exactly what Ukraine targeted.
Also damaged, drone debris fell on Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport, Russia's largest. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the strikes are an entirely justified retribution for a huge attack on Kyiv on Wednesday night.
Now let's break down what actually happened. Ukraine's security service confirmed on May 17th that it carried out a coordinated operation with Ukraine's armed forces targeting military, industrial, and fuel infrastructure in the Moscow region, including the Moscow oil refinery, along with air defense systems and infrastructure at the Belbek military airfield in occupied Crimea. Now watch how Russia's air defenses completely failed.
Air defense systems are now being placed on ramps and towers in Moscow. Russia has revised the structure of its short and medium-range air defense systems in an effort to defend itself more effectively against the drones that attack the city almost every day. The recalibration of air defense systems aimed specifically at eliminating drones will not help, experts believe. This is an imaginary control to appease the Federation's Ministry of Defense. Due to the shortage of air defense systems, Russia is forced to cover Putin's residence in Novgorod with the Panzer missile systems and also redeploy old S-300 systems from the Far East.
You can actually see some of these drones appearing to mock Russia's air defenses, which looked powerless to stop them as they moved over Moscow, identified their targets, and struck. Let me show you some of the footage from Moscow. You can see it clearly. This is not exaggeration. Moscow is literally burning. Fires were reported earlier in the day at infrastructure sites throughout the Russian capital, including at least one oil depot, after a large-scale combined Ukrainian assault involving cruise missiles and drones. Here is where Moscow starts falling apart.
All right, shifting our focus to the Russia-Ukraine war, which is now escalating once again. And Kyiv has launched its biggest drone barrage on Russia in over a year. Hundreds of drones targeted multiple Russian regions and the capital, Moscow. And Ukraine says the attacks are retribution for Russia's deadly assault on Kyiv. More about it in our next report. Take a look.
Multiple targets across Moscow and nearby areas were on fire. Look at this here. Here is another angle, as Jay in Kyiv points out that for the first time, Ukraine successfully struck the Moscow oil refinery, which had been considered one of the most protected facilities in the country, with multiple hits. And yes, as one commentator noted, if this keeps happening, Ukraine could actually force an end to the war. Another commentator joked that Moscow has never looked this hot. Right, Donald? The hottest country. So hot. So hot. Donald Trump keeps aligning himself with losers, while Zelenskyy is gaining a serious upper hand on the battlefield. You can see Ukrainian drones flying almost in coordinated formation as they strike Moscow this morning. At this stage, they are humiliating Russian air defense systems. Now see how Putin's own defenses turn deadly.
It started as an ordinary day on Ukraine's home front, but this peace punctured by brutal Russian attacks. Twin missiles struck this residential building in the eastern city of Zaporizhia. The explosion igniting fires, sending smoke billowing into the air, firefighters scrambling to cut through doors to search for survivors. This city may be near Russia's front line, but this apartment block was nowhere near a military target, local officials said. The attack killed one person and left dozens injured. The victims here were ordinary people and their pets.
Another commentator pointed out that Moscow cannot even catch a break because a road not only caught fire but started sinking because of poor construction, apparently without Ukraine even needing to get involved in that one. Now look at more footage of a major blaze after a drone strike in the Zelenigrad section of the Moscow Administrative District. The likely target was Elma Techno Park, where electronics manufacturing companies are based. The war is finally reaching Russian soil in a very visible way. Among the other things burning in Russia this morning, fires at Moscow's huge Solnechny-Gorsk oil facility continue to spread, while Russian social media is flooded with videos showing the destruction caused by Ukrainian drones and missiles. Russians are also pointing out that just last week, it became illegal to publish images or videos showing this exact kind of damage, with the possibility of lengthy prison sentences. In Moscow, this is treated as terrorism, yet the footage is still spreading. Putin's weak government has been exposed, and it gets worse. When Russia's air defense systems activated, they were reportedly so ineffective that civilian deaths in Moscow may have come from Russian air defense missiles hitting apartment buildings across the city. Finally, this part shows Zelensky's warning to Putin and Trump.
You have applied sanctions. We are grateful. These are powerful steps, but it was a little late. If the sanctions had been preventative, Russia would not have gone to war. No one knows for sure, but there would have been a chance.
As Jay in Kiev notes, with 3 people already confirmed dead across Moscow, residents are furious as Russian air defenses appear more capable of hitting their own buildings than stopping incoming attacks. Now, as Moscow burns, one of the most intoxicated-sounding voices in Putin's media operation is once again threatening to nuke the world. Sounds familiar, kind of like Donald Trump. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry press secretary, citing subparagraph D of paragraph 19 of the presidential decree outlining Russia's nuclear deterrence doctrine, recent reliable information about massive aerospace attacks could justify activating Russia's nuclear deterrent capabilities. Another account described this as a catastrophic day for Russian air defenses in Moscow. The defensive ring around the capital was breached in multiple areas. Ukrainian drones struck targets from Durkino in the north, Zelenograd, Sheremetyevo International Airport, and Khimki in the northwest, and even reached the Moscow refinery in the southeast of Russia's supposedly heavily protected capital. Zelenskyy has also shared footage of the Ukrainian drone and missile strikes, and here is what he wrote. Our responses to Russia's continuation of this war and its attacks on our cities and communities are fully justified. This time, Ukrainian long-range sanctions reach the Moscow region. The message to Russia is clear. Their state must end this war. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.